The 7 deadly sins, mankind's darkest impulses. Can science crack the mysterious code behind what drives us to sin? The science of sin. In a world of cheap and plentiful food and more leisure time than ever in human history, have we fallen prey to the ancient deadly sins of sloth and gluttony?
The sin of gluttony is about the idea of saying that I cannot control my desires for sensory experiences.
Eating foods that I shouldn't be eating, that gives me a guilty pleasure, for sure.
The fast food industries, of course, are very, very good at exploiting the biological aspects of gluttony.
Can science reveal why a human's evolutionary instinct to eat calorie-rich food is being overwhelmed by a food revolution that is only 50 years old? Over 60% of North Americans are overweight, 35% morbidly obese.
The greatest threat to mankind throughout its history was always starvation.
Ooh, baby.
The biggest threat is now overeating.
I know. Oh, I know.
If it weren't for health concerns, I'd stay as big till the day they bury me.
404 pounds. Wow.
Meanwhile, has an age of information overload, coupled with our ceaseless struggle for sleep, plagued us with the sin of sloth?
The nights are made to sleep. The days are made to work.
I'm always tired, not really motivated to do many things.
Why are people lazy? Why? Because it's easier. Who likes hard work? Sloth is wasting time, the most precious thing we have.
Can science deliver us from sin? Watch as cutting-edge research explores the deadly sins of gluttony and sloth.
I don't see food as the devil. I don't see it as something that I can't resist. I'm an adult, and I have the freedom to make decisions and choices that I want, but I'm just not necessarily the greatest at making decisions.
I can help you.
Absolutely. A number 2, please, with a large root beer, maybe a 5-piece of nuggets with some Buffalo Ranch sauce. I have no problem with how I look. If there were no health concerns with my size, I could stay this big my whole life. I don't care. Thank you very much.
It's a good deed. It's a moral thing to take care of your body. And overeating is unhealthy. Then that would be sinful right there and then. You're not taking care of your body.
If I had to gauge how often I eat out, I would say at least 5 nights a week, sometimes 7 nights a week. I get the extras, I get the appetizers, I get the dessert, I get everything. Sometimes I'll order 2 meals, just depending on how hungry I am.
Gluttony as a sin has been trivialized for years. I mean, it's not talked about, but you don't get far if you're fat.
National statistics reveal that the North American fast food industry is 1,000% larger than it was in 1975. Over 320,000 restaurants now make cheap, highly processed, high-calorie food next to impossible to avoid.
I like to think that I'm in better shape than another person who may be the same weight as me, because I did have a history of working out. But the fact remains, the human heart is not designed to cart around 400 pounds. It's just not, or everybody would be 400 pounds. So it's definitely something that I think about.
There's nothing wrong in loving food. You should not eat to the full stomach. Always try to stop before you're full.
But new behavioral research suggests that stopping before we're full is not just a problem for those we label obese. Brain science is proving the face of gluttony is far from simple.
When I was 13, I was 5'2" and 160 pounds. And the doctor told me I had high cholesterol. And it was a really scary experience for me, because it was something that I thought could only happen to older people. I love working out. I just enjoy being fit. I enjoy the way I feel. I enjoy how I look. And now that I'm a competitive fitness model, it's part of my life. It's part of what I do.
But when it comes to the sinful impulses of food, even hyper-fit fitness models can be forced to fight the glutton lurking inside.
On bad days, I tend to eat anything in sight. So I could start the day off good, and then all of a sudden at night, I just want to eat anything and everything. And even if I don't normally eat those foods because I'm absolutely starving, I'm going to eat them. One time I was training for a show and I just got cravings. Like I had to eat. I have a Metro Pass and I take the subway. So I literally got off at different subway stations along the way home, and I must have been to 10 different places. There was Tim Hortons, there was Mrs. Fields, there was McDonald's somewhere. Like all of this was within like a 2-hour time period. Like I just had to keep eating. It was crazy.
A 400-pound man, a 130-pound fitness model, both fighting the same ancient sins of the palate. Can modern science unlock the secrets behind their insatiable cravings? And flavors are what Terry will get when he is confronted with the famous Dangerous Dan's colon clogger meal.
Starts out as a 24-ounce burger. So it's 3 of those, made as one patty though, so it's not stacked together. It's like one big little cannonball of meat with a quarter pound of bacon and a quarter pound of cheese on top, and then an egg on the bottom and an egg on top. Comes with a small poutine and a large shake.
So you get all the basic food groups in there?
Yeah, you know.
All right. Like on a weekly basis, how many of these do you serve? And I mean, how many people actually get these down?
Well, we probably serve around 15 to 20 of the colon cloggers a week, the really big one. I'd say half the people actually finish the burger. Maybe 30% finish everything.
What separates big man Terry from fitness model Karen and their desire for food? Could she possibly match him in consuming this 3,000-calorie-plus meal?
This is insane.
Or will her eyes be bigger than her sculpted stomach?
I've always, loved food and I loved eating. So I'm constantly thinking about food. They have these hot dog eating contests where people can eat 60, 70 hot dogs in 10 minutes. And I totally think I could do that. Totally think I could do it. There's some days I don't even know how I get that much food into me and there's still room. I feel like a bottomless pit. There was this one situation I actually went out on a date with this gentleman. So this was a first date. And so we're sitting there, nibbling on the nachos, and I just kept nibbling and nibbling and nibbling. And all of a sudden, this gentleman pushes the plate aside and he says, "No, you've had too much. Here I am on a date, and this guy is telling me I've eaten too much even before the real meal has started." So I think I was more interested in the food than I was him, but oops.
Is the stop sign for food missing in the brains of gluttons? Or does the scientific clue point to a simple lack of self-control?
Well, that's the best damn burger I've ever had.
To find out, both Karen and Terry are about to undergo a groundbreaking test that will probe just how their minds and inner voices affect the cravings of their stomachs. Can science unlock why the sin of gluttony is so hard for us to avoid? Karen and Terry are about to have their inner voices tested in an ingenious impulse control experiment being conducted at the University of Toronto's Advanced Psychology Lab.
When we say the inner voice, we mean anything that you're saying to yourself in your head at any point in time. That's when you're telling yourself to keep going, when you're running on the treadmill, things like that.
The inner voice is the ongoing debate that takes place inside our heads. It's this internal dialogue that makes humans think twice before acting impulsively. Is a weak inner voice to blame for Karen and Terry's out-of-control food binges? To find out, researcher Alexa Tullett's self-control experiment suppresses the inner voice by flooding the mind with a repetitive word.
What I want
want you to do is to press the button when you see a yellow square and to not press the button when you see the purple square. And while you're doing the go, no go task, I want you to also say the word computer over and over again, and that's going to occupy your inner voice.
During the task, the regions of the brain associated with self-control are monitored for activity.
Computer, 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 computer. When you're saying a word to yourself repeatedly, you can't form these inner vocalizations that we think might help people with self-control.
Computer, computer, computer.
Computer, 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 computer.
Surprisingly, the tests reveal that Karen, despite her gluttonous impulses, has excellent self-control. But how will Terry score?
I think Terry's case is an interesting case because he actually made fewer errors than the average person.
Computer, computer.
Terry's basic self-control abilities are actually quite good.
Computer, computer.
So I don't think that self-control is an adequate explanation for why Terry overeats.
If both Terry and Karen have such strong self-control, why does the sin of gluttony have such a grip on them? And what health effects are they incurring because of it? For Karen, the answers are not so straightforward. For Terry, it's another story.
Just saying those two words in a string, heart attack, terrifies me. I actually avoid saying those words for some ridiculous reason. Like I believe it's going to stop it from becoming an eventuality.
If there was anything that I wanted to change about Terry, I think I would definitely want to change his eating habits, how much he eats. It doesn't bother me at all that he's big, because that's just him. But just his health, you know? I want him to be healthy. I want him to live a long time, because I want to be with him for a long time, and I don't want him to go anywhere.
I would say about 30% of my patient population were at least obese, but as heavily over as Terry, I would say about 10%. The number of patients that I've seen, and in the general population with weight problems, is definitely increasing. Do you mind just standing up for a minute? Sure. I just want to measure your waist. Part of it's just general lifestyle issues that people are a lot busier. They're not cooking at home the same way. They're picking up fast food on the way home, or prepared foods and processed foods. Excellent. And then much more sedentary lifestyles, people sitting at the computer, working long hours, coming home and vegging in front of the television. Okay, so your waist measurement is 160 centimeters. You can have a seat.
Okay.
And again, ideally for a man, we want your waist to be less than 100. So we're talking a lot of centimeters difference. But you can see that's where the problem is. Your weight is there. So, I mean, we're talking about that much needs to come away from this area. However...
I know people that are that much.
Well, not quite. That would be a pretty small waist.
Wow, that's quite a visual, though.
Yeah.
Just how serious are Terry's health issues?
Exactly.
You're gonna have to take all of your watch, jewelry, necklace, all that's gotta come off. Yeah.
To get an accurate measurement of how much fat he's carrying around, Terry will enter a bod pod. The bod pod uses cutting-edge technology to measure his volume, which along with his height and weight, will give him an extremely accurate body mass index.
Luke, I am your father!
Terry's BMI is no joke. The result is an astounding 55, a rating given only to the morbidly obese.
Okay, Terry, come on in and just have a seat.
For Terry to be in the normal weight range, he would need to lose close to 200 pounds.
Okay, so I have all your results. He's only 33 years old, and I think that he is at risk for diabetes, which has numerous associated risk factors.
Pop is my drink of choice. I drink, I would say, 12 cans a day.
Whoa.
Yeah, I drink a lot of pop, and you know, I can easily drink a 2-liter bottle in an hour.
That's one thing you must eliminate, because it's just pure sugar and there's no nutritional value whatsoever. So
The 12-plus cans of pop Terry consumes each day are greater than 3/4 of the total calories he needs from all food sources to maintain a healthy weight. Add in the spiking and crashing of his insulin levels to deal with the sugars, and the harm to his body skyrockets.
He is damaging his cardiovascular system in particular, and his testosterone level is low. So I think, I'm concerned about metabolically, about his bones, etc.
I like to think of myself as a man's man, and what makes us men is testosterone, and you're telling me I don't have very much. So, again, is this something that I can fix?
Yes.
I can deal with the cholesterol.
Right.
I can deal with the liver and the fatty liver, but
Right.
I'm really tripping on this testosterone issue.
Now that the dangerous side effects of Terry's gluttony have been fully revealed to him, will he be motivated to change? The latest scientific research shows that resisting the sin of gluttony presents a challenge to all of us, even for the super fit like Karen. While intense training and ultra-strict diets can temporarily keep the weight off, research is also showing these outwardly healthy habits often simply hide gluttonous urges.
What are some of the pros and cons about the way that I eat now? Some of the pros, I'm getting the body that I've always wanted and worked hard for. Some of the cons, I would say, is that you go through these binges. I don't want to be living my life constantly thinking about food.
Binge eating is eating large quantities of food in an out-of-control way, often 1,000, 1,200 calories in a sitting. And for many binge eaters, they end up being very overweight. There is a smaller group who compensate by exercising 2-3 hours a day. And there's arguments made whether or not they actually have what's called non-purging bulimia. Bulimia is where you actually eat huge amounts of food and then vomit it up, or purge it using laxatives. In this case, they're using exercise to burn away their calories.
The effects of her extreme training, coupled with her eating binges in the off-season, can see Karen's weight yo-yo by as much as 30 to 40 pounds over several months. The ups and downs of her food compulsions are never far from Karen's mind.
I would love to know why I eat the way I do. Is it perhaps because of the way I exercise and how much food I actually need to intake? Or is there something else that it could be?
So what is it in our DNA that makes us supersize our food?
We have been bred by natural selection to need and want sugar, fat, salt, and protein. So you just take sugar, salt, fat, and protein, you wrap it up in one burger or something, right? And you're going to get people to consume and consume and consume, because those natural inclinations to go for those substances was useful and evolved at a time when it was very hard to get any of these things.
Food biologists have also been able to determine that the cheapest foods have been proven to be the most calorie-dense, feeding quite literally our evolutionary drive for gluttony.
10,000 years ago, it made sense that we would want to notice foods. And our brain was designed to actually reward us for noticing things that would encourage our survival. And naturally now, we're actually become victims to our genetics.
Making matters worse is our natural human compulsion to eat everything on our plates. A Penn State University study has found a 50% bigger plate equals 43% more food consumed. Researchers have similarly proven that eating a large bag of popcorn makes us feel less gluttonous than the same amount spread over 2 smaller bags. So, the food industry has simply complied, giving us what we want: huge portions at a cheap price. And most of us have readily joined in the sin-filled food bonanza.
The greatest threat to mankind throughout its history was always starvation and lack of food. And it's only in the last maybe 30, 40 years that we've shifted it to the other side, where the biggest threat is now excess consumption and overeating.
But why can't humans say no to food more often? Work at the Montreal Neurological Institute is proving the reason may reside in the fact that our relationship with food resembles a drug addiction.
Dopamine is a central chemical in drug addiction. All known addictive drugs release dopamine. And we think that it is by releasing dopamine that they become addictive. Natural rewards, such as food, also release dopamine.
For Terry and millions like him, to overcome years of overconsumption and poor eating habits will also mean fighting their innate addictive traits.
The food industry has designed foods that trigger people to want more. It also affects people's brain chemistry.
Absolutely.
So a food actually is a drug that triggers dopamine, which is the drug in the brain that has to do with reward.
Now, so I'm a junkie.
You're a food junkie.
Sure.
That, to me, is a very important point, because it means that the only way to be successful at weight management is some form of abstinence towards the foods you can't control. Like if I said to you I was doing cocaine, you probably wouldn't say, well, have a little bit, just cut back on a little bit of it. There might be foods you need to cut out of your life, but more importantly, start to see it as, I'm not going to be taken again.
Is willpower enough? Or will science reveal that our ancient gluttonous instincts will defeat us? Science is discovering that the deadly sin of gluttony is a complex game between the mind and the stomach. The search for answers can lead to unlikely places. Disrupted sleep patterns have recently been linked to obesity, and perhaps not surprisingly, Terry is a self-described chronic night owl.
My sleep pattern is about as irregular as you can get. I've always been the night shift guy. I'll go 2 hours, 3 or 4 nights consecutively, and sleep 2 hours.
The latest evidence suggests that just one night of reduced sleep raises the levels of an important hormone in our stomachs that signals our brain to start eating. That hormone is called ghrelin.
One aspect of my research is to use functional magnetic resonance imaging. A fMRI is a technique that allows us to study the brain in action. Well, the question is, how does ghrelin make you eat and make you hungry? And what we found is that what it does is that it makes food more appetizing. So ghrelin doesn't just make you hungry, it makes you more hungry for high-fat, high-sweet foods. And when you go to the supermarket hungry, everything looks better, and you buy more because it all looks more appetizing. Another thing, of course, is if you skip a meal, your hunger signals start to increase, and you get a more intense hunger. And then when you finally do eat, you will tend to eat more. You'll consume greater amount of calories.
And again, missing meals is another one of Terry's worst habits.
I tend to eat 1 meal a day. A really, really, really big meal. I really spoil myself. I don't care.
Could controlling ghrelin be the key to Terry's eating problems?
Ghrelin is the only hormone known to date that increases appetite. And so if a drug could be devised that blocks ghrelin activity in the brain, it might be a good treatment for obesity.
While science is unraveling the secrets of our biological desires to eat, Master Chef Massimo Capra has another view on gluttony. He embraces it.
Absolutely. So what kind of food do you like anyway? I mean, what do you eat?
You know, I'm not really picky.
Oh, really, huh?
I got a wide range of interesting tastes in my palate.
Look at this beautiful mummy roll from Quebec. Tell me that that's not something that really stimulates your appetite. I mean, you don't have to be hungry to eat.
No.
That's my problem.
No.
Because I never eat when I'm hungry.
My problem, too.
To Massimo, the love of food is a balancing act.
The hunger, when you're hungry and you want to eat something, a normal person would be actually, just hungry, eat. Simple equation. You get hungry, you get a call from the stomach to your brain that tells you, hey, go get something to eat, put it down.
You know what, that looks like something I wouldn't like.
You know what this is?
I'm scared to know.
These are duck skins.
Okay.
But when food can be made to taste this good, a sinful line can be crossed.
One way that evolution has made sure that we don't starve is to make food tasty.
Quack, quack.
Yeah, chicharrones, man.
Oh my
These
goodness.
are good.
Oh my goodness.
Hedonic eating refers to eating for pleasure. And an example of that would be if you're not particularly hungry and you see a nice piece of chocolate cake, and all of a sudden seeing it makes you desire it.
You get filled because your brain senses it and it tells you, you have to stop, this is enough, right? And that's when you have the little piece of chocolate that comes at the end of the meal and it just tortures you. And you look at arrive and you go like, whoa, okay, I was full until now.
Could one of the keys to defeating the sin of gluttony lie in confronting another of the deadly sins, sloth? Sloth is the ancient vice of laziness, oversleep, and in biblical days, a lack of productive work. But in our technological age, the deadly sin of sloth has taken on a modern face.
I think we have a real problem with technology, how compulsive it gets and how we use it to give in to feel good. Because you'll say, well, it'll only take a minute to play one more game. It'll only take a minute to check my Facebook page. That's true. But a minute later, you're facing the same situation. And then 4 hours later, you go, oh my God, look what time it is. Sloth is a sin because sloth is wasting time, the most precious thing we have.
While technology-driven sloth is affecting us all, it has become an epidemic among teenagers.
Oh man, trying to get Aiden up in the morning, it's almost impossible. I feel terrible because I can tell in his voice, wake up, that he's just completely exhausted. For several nights, he's probably been up, till 4 or 5 in the morning, and I don't know how productive he'd be at school anyway. Every morning is kind of like agony getting up, because I always feel like I haven't had enough sleep. A lot of my friends, they also have trouble getting up for school. Just everybody in the morning, just so tired and unhappy. Rarely is anybody on time. I do sometimes call Aiden lazy, and I think he laughs it off. But I think, people that don't know Aiden well, if they kind of watched his day-to-day activity, they would definitely, look down at him and think, wow, another lazy teenager. Maybe you're gonna try cleaning up the house a bit later?
What kind of a sin is sloth? That's an interesting one, because ultimately, sloth is just, not wanting to get off your butt and do any work.
Anybody that's ever had a teenager knows what the sin of sloth supposedly looks like.
Time did you go to bed last night? What?
I don't know. I get a lot of calls from his teachers saying that they're concerned, that he's not doing as well as he could be doing. He's just pretty well just passing, and he just doesn't seem very motivated, and they feel he's got a lot of potential, but he's just not living up to it.
Okay, we're almost at school. You better wake up.
Waking up early was always encouraged by the prophet. He used to say that the one who sleeps when the sun comes up will always be poor.
You all right?
Yeah.
Not in the sense of wealth, in the sense of spiritual wealth.
Sloth is not doing what we should be doing when we should be doing it.
Sin can also be not living up to potential, or not living up to the mandate that God set out for me. That's also a sin.
So what is it that makes Aiden so slothful by day, but sees him have creative bursts of energy at night? Even to the point that he has created his own electronic music CD. While supportive, his father is concerned.
I'm just worried that he's not able to get his sleep problems under control and try to be more active at school, that it's going to limit what he can do in the future.
Could the quality of Aiden's sleep be causing his slothful behavior? This cutting-edge sleep lab at Trent University may hold the answer. Aiden's performance will be tested against a control subject, Corinne, who will get the recommended amount of sleep.
As you're coming up towards
Aiden will go to sleep at his usual time.
Okay.
During the night, Aiden's and Corinne's brain activity is monitored to record and assess their stages of sleep.
Sleep is really important for learning in that after you've learned something, a good night of sleep helps you to consolidate it or make it more permanent.
In the morning, what will Aiden's test scores reveal about the connection between sleep
Morning, Aiden.
and sloth?
Time to get up.
With day breaking at the sleep lab, Aiden and the control subject Corinne are woken up to perform a battery of tests.
Okay, let's go. The tests that we gave Aiden and Corinne were a variety that tapped all of the stages of sleep and different kinds of learning. Conceptual tasks, tasks that require you to come up with a brand new idea. We had a motor skills task, which was the ball and cup. And we had him memorize pairs of words, very much like what a lot of material is in school.
The test proved that missing vital components of sleep are having a dramatic impact on Aiden's performance.
You got 3.46 hours of sleep, which is less sleep than somebody your age should get. Your counterpart, Corinne, she got 8 hours of sleep. And your learning scores were not quite as good as hers. So if you were to do this every day, and she learns maybe 15-20% more than you do every day, at the end of a month, there's a gap. At the end of a year, you're probably like a whole grade apart. You're not going to be able to keep up.
For Aiden, these striking revelations are bearing themselves out far beyond the sleep lab. Aiden is, in fact, 1 full year behind in school. So what is fueling his tired and slothful behavior? Could late-night gaming and computer use be altering his sleep patterns? The answer may lie in measuring the quality and quantity of light entering his eyes. Teenagers today are getting an average of 6 hours of sleep a night, far short of the over 9 hours they need. Not surprisingly, over 20% of high schoolers report falling asleep in class. Is there a biological explanation for all this lack of adequate sleep? Or is modern technology causing what some experts call teenage night owl syndrome? Renowned scientist Mariana Figueiro of the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute believes it all has to do with the light that penetrates our eyes and the brain's internal clock system being thrown out of sync. She has agreed to take on Aiden's case.
Hello? We're diurnal species. We're supposed to be active during the day and asleep at night. So our master clock sends us an alerting signal during the day and a sleeping signal at night.
That nighttime sleep signal triggers the release of melatonin, a human hormone that floods the bloodstream about 2 hours before bedtime. At its peak, melatonin brings on the irresistible urge to sleep.
So if you tend to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, you probably are starting to produce melatonin around 8 o'clock.
But how does the master clock itself know what time it is?
Our master clock needs to be reset daily to have synchronization with the Earth's rotation of exactly 24 hours.
For thousands of years, humans were forced to live by dim firelight at night and bright daylight during the days. This has made all humans biologically sensitive to natural blue light.
We are really looking for blue light. and the retina has a direct link with the master clock. So that daily light-dark pattern, especially the morning light, is what resets our master clock to exactly 24 hours.
And it's morning light that the teenage brain needs most to reset its clock. Could it be that Aiden's master clock is getting thrown out of sync by the glowing computer and TV screens that surround him at night? To determine his melatonin release time, Aiden's saliva is sampled every half hour. And to monitor his exposure to blue light, Dr. Figueroa will have him wear this state-of-the-art light measuring device called a dosimeter for 1 full week.
It's placed near his eyes to measure how much light the retina is getting.
The dosimeter reveals that Aiden is virtually living in a cave. But surprisingly, it's not the low levels of computer and TV light that are throwing Aiden out of sync. Rather, it's the fact that he's almost never exposed to bright sunlight that is wreaking havoc.
Aiden is asleep during the day and is awake throughout the entire night with very low light level exposure. So his master clock is very confused and doesn't know what daytime and nighttime is. His melatonin onset does not occur before 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, so it's extremely late, where he's shifted 8 hours from everybody else. So he is probably having a very hard time keeping up with school, and he's just extremely tired. I can see him anywhere he can, just simply falling asleep.
Aiden is an extreme case, but he's not alone. For reasons still unclear to science, evolution has made the teenage brain naturally inclined to prefer late nights, a sleep pattern out of sync with the schedules of modern life. But luckily for them, schools like Aiden's are starting to adjust with 1 hour later start times.
The late starts do feel very good because when I wake up, I actually feel like I can get ready for school properly.
I can tell you that the states that have changed school time for teenagers have seen better scholastic performance.
More sleep would also have another profound health benefit.
Okay, we're almost at school. You better wake up.
There has been studies linking this misalignment between your light-dark pattern, your internal clock, to diabetes and obesity. The hormones that are associated with hunger are higher in your body.
You right?
You're hungrier because you slept less.
Herein lies the link between sloth and gluttony. Two sins driven by evolution and our biological need to survive. Both well suited to a distant time, but ill-adapted to our modern age. Will science help us modify our Stone Age brains and lead us to a less sinful future? When it comes to our sins, will science trump our biology? Will high-tech light therapy correct Aiden's internal clock, shifting his days back to nights?
It can be done. It does take a lot of effort because you have to control your 24-hour light-dark pattern. As I always say for normal people, go for a half-hour walk in the morning. Daylight is the best light you can have for the circadian system. Or it would be a combination of blue light goggles and orange goggles or blue blocking goggles. The blue light goggles will give you enough light at the retina, that light you need in the morning to train your circadian clock. Typically, we use blue light emitting diodes or LEDs. Then the orange glasses, those are really blue blocking so that you can remove that blue light at night. It's up to him to decide whether he really wants to go through this effort or not in order to improve scholastic performance.
So far, so good for Aiden. His sleep patterns have shifted to earlier bedtimes, and his days are much less filled with tiredness and laziness. But with modern-day temptations everywhere, can Aidan hold off the sin of sloth for long? That is his challenge. Meanwhile, with the science of gluttony, things are not so simple. It's a sin as old as time, one that religions of all kinds have addressed for thousands of years.
Gluttony is not just about food. Okay? Gluttony is about the idea of saying that I cannot control my desires for sensory experiences.
There is a very prominent verse in the Quran which says, eat and drink, but don't be extravagant. Don't overdo it.
Why do people overeat? Because there's a temporary moment of happiness, of self-gratification. And everybody wants to be happy. They are for a little while, but it doesn't last. So you have a little more food and it becomes a vicious cycle.
Will the ageless sin of gluttony be conquered?
Our brain is hardwired to get what we want when we want it. But we wouldn't have survived very long if it wasn't also ingrained in us to be able to not just delay gratification, but to be able to put the self in second place.
Science suggests there are techniques to deal with our food impulses. More sleep, getting enough calcium, eating protein with our carbohydrates, and regular exercise. But even for hyperfit individuals like Karen, gluttony is never far away.
I don't want to be overweight again. I don't want to have high cholesterol again. I don't want to have all the same health issues I had. And if I'm going to continue to binge eat or to eat unhealthy foods, that's just only going to set me in that path again. I would love to just eat a meal, feel full, and just be like everyone else. I would love that.
For now, Karen and Terry are losing the battle and worry what the future holds.
If I ever turned out to be one of those people that has to lift up his gut to use the bathroom,
right?
If I ever turned out to one of those people that all they wear is track pants,
yeah,
one of those people that rides a cart around in Walmart,
okay,
you know, if I ever turned out to being one of those people that's so obese they can't even function,
right,
and their daily living is affected, that would be my worst fear.
Okay. If you could bring some of that imagery every time you make an eating decision, like I don't want to be that guy in Walmart in the cart, because it would mean like I'm weak now.
Yeah,
I'm not strong anymore, which I think you would not like.
Oh, I would devastate me.
Since the dawn of man, the struggle against starvation was imperative to our survival. But today, with limitless food and excessive leisure time, our biological instincts have turned against us. With human evolution still catching up in the fight to conquer gluttony and sloth, a future of impulse control pills, engineered food advances, and sleep aids may be our only hope. But for now, it is willpower and creating our own human boundaries that are our best tools in combating these deadly sins.